David, who was recently locked in jail for what he did to little Celeste, was reportedly attacked behind bars in a moment that shocked both the correctional staff and the public following his case. And while people end up incarcerated for countless reasons, the truth is that even in a world full of criminals, there are boundaries that should not be crossed. David's actions pushed him past those boundaries, leading to what many are calling a correction at the hands of fellow inmates, a brutal reminder that prison has its own laws and its own system of justice that often works outside the official rulebook. To understand how David, once seen as a rising star in music and now branded a pariah, reached this moment, we have to look at the chain of events that followed his jaw-dropping courtroom confession. When David admitted to what he did to Celeste, the world outside gasped in horror, but inside the prison walls, that confession carried a weight far heavier than he probably realized. Inmates talk. Rumors spread like wildfire. Nothing stays hidden for long. By the time David arrived at the facility, his reputation had already entered ahead of him, carried in by whispers, news clippings, and the disgust of men who, despite being locked away for their own reasons, believed David's crime was one that violated the unwritten moral code of prison life. Please do not forget to like this video, share and subscribe to this channel if you want more updates like this. Thank you. Now, let's get back into the video. Every correctional environment operates with an invisible hierarchy, not just of gang affiliations and power structures, but of crime categories. Offenses involving harm to children or the vulnerable sit at the absolute bottom of that hierarchy, and those branded with such crimes often live in a constant state of fear, isolation, or danger. David, whether out of arrogance or denial, seemed unprepared for this harsh reality. Reports suggest that he walked into the general population with the same smirk he wore during his courtroom confession, an attitude that only painted a target on his back. To many inmates, it wasn't just what he did that made him detestable. It was the way he appeared to mock it. The smile, the calmness, the casual admission that left the world outside wondering if he was unwell. But inside, that demeanor translated to disrespect. And disrespect rarely goes unanswered in prison. According to insider accounts, the attack happened during a routine day, perhaps when David thought he was blending into the background, perhaps when he thought people had already moved on from the shock of his case. But prison doesn't forget, and it doesn't forgive, especially not something like this. Eyewitnesses, whose stories later leaked out through families and connections, say that a small group of inmates cornered David in a common area. What began as taunts quickly escalated into physical violence. Fists flew, boots stomped, and David, once the smiling singer, was reduced to a bloody mess within minutes. Guards rushed in to break up the assault, but many say the damage was already done. Not just physically but symbolically. The attack was a message, both to David and anyone else who might think certain crimes could be shrugged off even behind bars. Prison justice, harsh as it is, had been delivered. News of the attack spread outside almost instantly, fanned by social media speculation, sensational headlines, and outraged commentary. Some people cheered, feeling that David had received a taste of justice that the legal system alone could not provide. Others expressed discomfort, pointing out that no one, not even the worst criminal, should be left to the mercies of unchecked violence. But regardless of which side people landed on, the fact remained, David's prison life would never be the same again. He had been marked, not just by his crime, but now by the physical scars left behind by those who decided to enforce their own code. Psychologists weighing in on the case suggested that David's earlier behavior, smiling during confession, speaking casually about what he had done, may have reflected deeper mental disturbances. But even if that were the case, it did not shield him from inmate justice. In short, in fact, the story you are about to hear is one of the most shocking downfalls because that smile was seen not as sickness, because it tells how David, and arrogance behind as a young rising artist with everything ahead of him, for David's family, ended up standing in front of already faced the shame and devastation of the unaliving of 15-year-old assault only and was sentenced to life imprisonment. They issued no statements at first, Maybe
perhaps
he was
out
never
of fear,
the real monster at
perhaps
all,
out of shame,
but rather
or
the
perhaps
shield for someone else
because there was
whose
no
identity
words
may
that could
forever
soften the
remain
reality
in
of
the
their son's
shadows.
downfall.
From the very
For Celeste's
beginning of
family,
this tragic story,
however,
the air was
the
heavy with
news was
disbelief.
bittersweet
Because
they could
David
not
was
reclaim
no
their
ordinary
daughter's
name
life.
in the industry.
They could not undo
He was
the
the
type
type
of
of
artist
artist
critics
faced.
called the future
But in the
sound
whispers of prison
of
justice,
voice meant to define a
they found a
generation.
grim
A
satisfaction.
creative who built his career
To them,
on vulnerability
David's
and
suffering
soul.
was a pale reflection.
He was just
of
in
the
his
pain he
late
caused.
teens when people
But it
started
was at
calling
least
him
a sign
phenomenon.
that somewhere,
the kind of talent that only
there was
comes
a
around
reckoning.
once in a decade.
Prison
And yet
officials,
here he stood in the
meanwhile,
courtroom,
scrambled to
hands cuffed,
control the narrative.
eyes red,
In
lips
cases like
trembling,
these,
confessing
public
something
perception
so
matters
dark,
almost as much
so
as internal
disturbing,
discipline.
that
An
even the most
institution
hardened
could
journalists
not afford
could
to
not
be
bring
seen
themselves to
as
write about
losing
it
control
without
of
pausing to
inmates.
breathe.
Statements
Please do
were
not forget
carefully
to like
crafted,
this video,
downplaying
share and
severity of the
subscribe
attack,
to this channel,
framing
if you
it as
want
an
more updates
altercation.
like this.
A word
Thank
far
you.
too soft for
Now,
what truly went
let's
down.
get back into the video.
But photos at
beginning
leaked,
of his downfall was
showing
not sudden,
David's battered face,
though.
told
was
us story
gradual,
officials tried
hidden in
hard to
whispers,
suppress.
late-night rumors,
The reality
and
was
cryptic
clear.
posts online.
David had been
when
beaten,
Celeste, a
humiliated,
15-year-old,
and
full of
set on a
life,
path that would likely
disappeared.
define his
Her
entire
family's
time in
desperate
prison.
search collided with
As
David's
weeks
glittering
passed,
world of tours
rumors
and
swirled
interviews.
that David might be
An
transferred
intersection
to
would
protective
forever
custody.
destroy both.
A move
At
often
first,
seen
nobody
as
suspected
the
him.
only option
After
for inmates
all,
targeted
why would they?
because of the nature of
David
the
was
crimes.
adored by millions.
But protective
His fan
custody
base treated
is
him like
no
he did no
haven.
wrong.
It means
His
isolation.
music painted him as someone
It means
sensitive
living
to pain,
under a constant
not the
shadow
cause
of
of
fear.
it. But
It
the night
means
authorities
losing
discovered
whatever
Celeste's
slivers of
body
normalcy
inside the
existed
trunk of
within
the prison
prison
life
linked him.
For someone
The
like
narrative
David,
began shifting
who once
violently.
thrived in the spotlight.
What followed was chaos.
Such a move would be a
Social media
devastating contrast.
explosions.
Fans
As
daily
defending him
reminders
blindly.
fall from
Critics
grace.
dissecting his lyrics
Commentators
for hidden
drew
confessions.
parallels to other infamous
And police
cases
moving
where
quickly
criminals
to detain
accused
him.
of harming
When he
children
appeared in
faced
court for
similar
the first
fate
time,
behind bars.
the scene was surreal.
History, it seemed.
The courtroom was packed
Repeats
wall
itself
to
with
wall
cruel
with reporters.
consistency.
Cameras
Inmates,
flashing every
regardless
second.
of their own sins,
The quiet
often
sobbing
see
of Celeste's
themselves as
mother
enforcers
echoing
of a
over
higher
clicking
moral
shutters.
standard.
David
And they
walked
take it
wearing
upon
a simple
themselves to
gray
mete out
suit.
punishment when the
But
system
there was nothing
feels too
ordinary
lenient.
about the aura he
This
carried.
duality fascinates.
It was the
and
aura of a
disturbs
fallen
in
star.
equal measure. Someone too young
How
to
can
be
those
facing
guilty
life
of
in
violence
prison
themselves become
yet too
arbiters of
guilty to
morality?
ever walk free
And
again?
It happened again and again,
wasted no
a
time.
phenomenon
They
sociologists
laid out
have
every
studied and
detail
documented,
meticulously,
but never fully
The
explained.
timeline of Celeste's
For
disappearance.
David,
The
the
implications
digital
are
footprints,
clear. The
His
testimonies
life
of
behind
people who have
bars
seen her
will
in
last.
isolation, fear, and
Discovery of her
constant
body.
vigilance.
Every
Every
day
day
will
will
be a
be a
question
traces
of
of
survival.
belongings were linked
Every face he
directly back
sees,
to David's car.
potential threat.
The evidence
The
was
smile
crushing,
that once
almost
unnerved the
suffocating,
world has likely faded.
and as it piled up,
replaced by a grim
whispers
awareness
turned
that
into
the
celebrity
gasped
status
gallery.
no longer shielded
David
him,
sat there,
but
head
instead
down,
paints a bigger
knuckles
target
white,
on his back.
and for a long
Outside
time
the
he
prison
refused to
walls,
look anyone in the eye.
The cultural conversation
defense
around
team
David
tried desperately to shift
continues
the
to
narrative.
evolve.
His
Suggesting
music,
possibilities
once
of
beloved by
manipulation,
fans,
coercion, or
now
even
plays
framing,
like a haunting echo
but none
of
of could
what was
withstand
lost.
the weight of the truth
Not
that
just
eventually
innocence
poured from
Celeste,
David's own
but the
lips.
image of an artist
Because
who
one
betrayed
afternoon,
everything
midway
he
through the
stood for.
trial,
Some
David stood
fans
up,
have abandoned him
asked to
entirely.
address the court and
deleting
confess.
his songs.
The silence that
refusing to
followed was
say his
unlike
name.
anything anyone had ever experienced. Total, absolute silence, as if the air itself was too stunned to move. He admitted he was the one responsible for Celeste's death, though his words carried a strange ambiguity, a shadowy undertone that suggested layers beneath the surface. "I did it," he said, voice breaking. "But not everything is what it seems." His confession, though damning, left more questions than answers. Why did he do it? What pushed a promising young star into such darkness? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, was he protecting someone else? There were whispers in the courtroom, whispers that have since followed him into the prison where he will spend the rest of his life. Some say David took the fall to shield someone close to him, someone powerful enough to manipulate the narrative,